Produced by Victoire. Victoire gives a special thanks to the EWF, Empire Wrestling Federation, and Mr. Jesse Hernandez, as well as SoCal Wrestling TV. Find the app on Roku. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Power and Glory. This is the place where you discover the power of truth in professional wrestling. I am one of your co-stars, the Master Amir, along with my co-star, returning this week. You're back by popular demand, Paul. You were missed last week, but here you are, you're back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is WWE and WCW superstar, Paul Roma.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm back. Hit that subscribe button. I am back.
That's right.
Yeah. A little busy last week, but glad to be back on. Get this thing started up again, and but now, this week we're missing someone else.
Yes, sadly, fans, we are missing our third partner in justice. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mario Mancini is occupied today. He will be joining us again next week. And for those of you who are missing Mario this week on Power and Glory, hop on over to Hey Roma, the talk show, and you'll see him, his appearance with us this week there. So, Paul, definitely our audience, powerplex that subscribe button, hit the likes, share with your friends and family. We appreciate it. Also, send in your comments. We'd love to hear from you. Another announcement before we get going today, coming across your screen, public speaking engagements. The entire team here at the Masters of Wrestling. That is Paul Roma. That is Mario Mancini, Rico Constantino, McCallion, and myself, the Master. If you're interested in booking us for speaking engagement, please do so by using the email address in the description of this video. And another reminder, everybody, WrestleCon 2025 is right around the corner in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. It is WrestleMania week. If you're a wrestling fan, you need to be there, and you need to make your way to the Power and Glory and Hey Roma talk show booth. We will be there in our entirety, also along with Jim Powers. He will also be joining us there. Come and get some autograph signings, take some photographs, and there will be a live recording of the show there. So make sure that you're there. You don't want to miss that. All right, Paul.
Yeah. Hey, listen, that's their big chance to get on our podcast, right?
Yep.
You're going to be filming it live. Get in there, ask your questions, say hello to all your fans, say hello to all our fans. Like you said, Amir's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Jim Power's going to be there. Mario Mancini's going to be there. Stop by the booth. We're going to have a good time.
It's going to be a good time. You're going to need a ticket for that, but Paul, they're going to need a ticket for where we're going today. They're also going to need, they're also going to need a passport. Make sure you're You're going to need a passport, and you need to punch your ticket. So, Paul, how can they punch that ticket?
By hitting that subscribe button. That's how they do it. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
It just takes you what? Done.
And it's free. Remind everybody, it's free.
You're going to come with us to that long journey overseas for free. Just by hitting a subscribe button.
Yep, indeed. We're traveling overseas today. We're going back to the homeland, the place of my birth, the United Kingdom. It has been a bed of professional wrestling fans for decades now, Paul, but it also produced one of the greats. Sadly, he lost his life in, 2003. He passed away. Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, tremendous talent, a man who you spent a lot of time with, Paul. You worked with a lot, both in WWE and in WCW. So, Paul, I'm going to kick it to you. You were the man who was there. When was the first time that you met Davey?
Wow. So many years back. But within the first, maybe probably 2 months, when I came into WWF. Didn't know much about anything. Didn't know much about as far as the different characters, the guys.
Yeah.
The British Bulldogs were just that. I looked at them. I said, "Oh, these guys are in great shape." And I always admired the guys that were in great shape because I knew, I was in great shape, and I knew how much it took,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, to get there, let alone keep yourself there.
Oh yeah.
I didn't really understand at that time, because I was just, starting out, um, what it really took to
Hmm.
stay in shape, being on the road so many days. You come into the WWF and you wrestle on TV. Okay. And then you go home,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then you come back the next day, say to somewhere else, and you wrestle. And then you go home. One match, two matches, whatever it is. I didn't realize that these guys are on the road 23 days a month.
Yeah. Big
How
adjustment.
do you, yeah, how do you do that? How do you
Yeah.
keep your diet,
Yeah.
right? How do you eat right when all you have are restaurants?
Yeah. Plus your sleep and everything else. How do you sleep right? How do you
Right.
pack your
Traveling,
traveling? Yeah, and
jet lag.
overseas. Yep. So
Yeah,
so
tough.
did Davey and of course the Dynamite Kid Tom Billington, did they help you in that regard, like to get used to this new way of life?
No, I was, how can I say it? I don't want to say standoffish, but I was skeptical
Hmm.
about, who to talk to, um, who to become friends with. I didn't know these guys. And so, was I complimented? Did they come over, say, hey, I'm so and so, or, blah, blah, blah? Sure.
Hmm.
I watched them while they did interviews, which kind of started to create that little bit of, I don't want to say friendship, but camaraderie,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They see you watching them. They'd walk right by you,
Yeah.
not even acknowledge you.
Right.
You're a peon,
Yeah.
without saying it, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what you are.
Yeah.
um, and that goes for every guy
Yeah. Yeah.
I watched. Just wanted to see what they were doing,
Mhm.
being nosy, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And then once I started to get bookings and get on the road, that's when they start coming around. That's when other wrestlers start, curious,
Hmm.
friendly, or not friendly. You
Yeah.
know, to some people, you're a threat, depending upon how you look, what your work is like, what they're doing with you.
Hmm.
And to others, they're so confident in their own shell, or as the verbiage would be, in their own skin. They are more than willing to help you
Got it. Got it.
and give you pointers.
Now, when you first saw Davey, I mean, obviously, if you could use your mind now, looking at them back then, obviously your interpretation would have been different because they were your competition back in those days. But looking back, what were your first impressions? These guys were stars, or did that ever go through your mind that they would be something big? Okay.
Oh, they were already, I think they were pretty much on their way.
Hmm.
When they came into WWF, they were already made
Yeah.
as far as stars. Um, Competition, no, never looked at them like that.
Okay.
I I had a different outlook. I think than a lot of people, and
Hmm.
then probably the same as a lot of people.
Hmm.
They weren't, to me, they weren't my competition.
Okay.
I looked at them and said, "Damn, what can I do if I ever wrestle these guys?"
Hmm. Yeah. Great
That's
taking.
that's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
Where a lot of these wrestlers looked at you and said, "Okay, this guy's a threat to my career.
Hmm.
He's going to take my spot. I'm older than him. He looks better than me. What can I do to get rid of this guy?"
Yeah. Which we
While
hear.
a lot of, right, and while a lot of our fans out there are saying, "Ah, no, no, that's exactly how it was, and
Hmm.
that's exactly how they thought
Hmm.
their thinking went." If they can go to an agent and say that you said something, most of the time the agents wouldn't walk over to you and ask you. So I'll use you and me as an example. So somebody comes to me, and a fan
Okay.
comes to me and he says, "Hey, Paul, Amir said that you're not a guy to talk to because you don't want to be bothered." And now I just talked to the guy for 30 minutes,
Hmm. Got
right?
it. Yeah.
Well, is it true? Who do I go back to? Do I go back to you and ask you? Okay. Me, I'd go back to you and say, Amir, did you really say that about me?
Mhm.
And then leave it up to you what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Well, the agents didn't do that.
Okay.
When that person came up to them and said, hey, you can't, talk to Paul Roma because, he's just a bad guy. He doesn't want to be bothered. They went and told other agents, or they went to the office and
Hmm.
said, hey, Vince, this guy's got a bad attitude. He doesn't want to be bothered by anybody. Then
So
need
there
to
was,
check up on it.
so yes, I was going to say there was no checks and balances here. It was just you're guilty, judge, jury, and executioner immediately. Wow.
Done.
What a
Done.
cutthroat environment.
That's
But
exactly how it was.
but yeah, but in terms of Davey and Tom, did they approach you guys? I mean, when was the ice broken between you and obviously the young stallions with Jim Powers at the time?
That's when the ice was broken for the most part. So they'd come up to Jimmy and myself and they say, hey, you guys look great. You guys, they should tag team you guys, blah, blah, blah. Well, that really wasn't our call, at least that we believed.
Okay.
And then the young stallions were formed. And they came over to us and they're like, oh, you guys look great. You're gonna make a lot of money, blah, 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 blah.
Mm,
And then we started traveling with the Bulldogs
okay.
because we were both babyface teams.
Yeah.
So we were allowed to travel together. And that's when traveling got interesting.
Yeah, it got interesting. Okay, so this
It
is
got
the
interesting.
part. Yeah, this is the part where again you need to subscribe if you want to continue listening here. So it gets interesting. Now we've heard stories about Davey, especially Davey, more so than Tom. It seems like, well, in your impression, was one the straight edge one? Was one the serious one? Was one the comedian, or were they both the comedians?
So Davy Boy was, I put it, Davy Boy was the calm one
Okay,
until Dynamite got him going.
all right.
So the antagonist, Dynamite Kid,
Mhm.
um, he would do a bunch of things,
Yeah,
play a ton of ribs
yeah,
on all different people.
yeah,
And then he'd get Davy Boy involved.
yeah,
Hell broke loose. It was
yeah,
bad enough, one guy was doing it, but
yeah,
then
yeah.
when they both got on track, forget it.
Yeah. Do you remember any specifically that come to mind? I mean, I know you were extremely busy at the time. Were there any ribs that really stood out?
Yeah, so the Red Rooster,
Mm. Yeah. Terry Taylor.
Barry Taylor, he came in and we were in Toronto, Canada. Um, and he went to the ring. Terry Taylor went to the ring, and the British Bulldogs did not like him. So Terry came in, had a nice suit on, right? Looking the part. That was great. Very professional.
Yeah.
Had his Halliburton suitcase, which a lot of people don't know what the Halliburton is, very expensive back then. It was
Mhm.
probably close to $300 for that Halliburton back then.
That was a lot of money back then.
A lot of money. So it was about that big,
Mhm.
about this. This I know it's hard to see, but like this tall,
Okay.
and you put your wrestling boots in it. You were able to lock. It was a three combination lock.
Okay.
So you were able to put your boots in it, your wrestling gear in it, your toiletries, and then your valuables.
Mm.
So you lock it, you go to the ring, you come back, you unlock it. Well, Terry went to the ring, and when Terry Taylor came back into the locker room, he had shorts for slacks, his
Oh,
suit.
oh
Yeah,
man. Yeah.
yeah. They kind of tailored his
Every pun
suit
intended. Yeah.
for the summer.
Wow. How did
Um,
that go down? Do you remember? Were you there when you saw it?
oh, I was there.
Yeah.
So, and then they actually got into his Halliburton.
Yeah. Wow.
They were, yeah, they were. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. Terry came back. He saw his suit was now a summer suit.
Hmm.
Saw his Halliburton was open. He checked his stuff, and all he did was grab his stuff and he left.
Oh, wow. No response. Wow.
No, and that was the smart thing,
Yeah.
which I found out later on.
Yeah.
So um, you didn't. If you responded, then they would harass you more.
Okay.
If you didn't, as we call it, if you didn't put it over,
Hmm.
you just okay, and you left, then they got nothing, no gratification from it.
Yeah.
So they might try it one more time, but after they see that it's not getting to you, they're not going to waste their time anymore.
Yeah.
They wanted people that threw fits, that went crazy.
Yeah.
Who did this? Well, nobody's going to say who did it.
No, of course not.
You know what I
Of course
mean?
not.
And they start yelling and screaming and throwing a hissy fit. Well, now the next night you're going to get it again.
Yeah.
And the problem is you always have to go to the ring.
That's true. You've always got to
You
leave your
can't
stuff.
take your clothes with you. You always got to leave your stuff in the locker room. Where are you going to put it?
Oh man.
So that was just one.
Yeah. That's funny, man. So did anyone ever rib them? Were you around when anyone got them back?
Yeah, but it wasn't anything really big. The
Okay.
problem was they'd come back 10 times fold on you.
Oh yeah.
And if you were seen ribbing them because they were Fuji's henchmen, uh, you were sold out.
Wow. So the British Bulldogs at this time, again, still young, probably in their 20s, they had a lot of pull backstage then. A lot of pull with upper management.
Well, once they got on a roll, once they were royalty,
Hmm.
meaning they were their position on the card, they were making Vince money, they were over,
Yeah.
right? The term we use, then they were, for lack of a better word, untouchable, meaning Vince is going to look the other way.
Got it. Got it.
Vince is getting, told what's going on,
Mhm.
and he's looking the other way.
Okay.
It's, hey, come on, guys. Okay, Vince. No,
Yeah.
they're going to do what they want to do. Um, Vince actually went to Mr. Fuji, Uncle Harry, and asked him to please stop with the ribs. And those were Fuji's henchmen.
Yeah.
When he sent them out to get somebody, they were gone.
Wow. Wouldn't have thought it. But another thing I think of during that time is they obviously had Matilda, the dog, was prevalent with them all the time. Now, who was Matilda? Was this a random dog that they would bring in every show, or did they travel with Matilda?
They traveled with Matilda.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and weren't happy about it. I mean, they they didn't treat it bad.
Hmm.
Okay, it was the boys, the other wrestlers that treated Matilda bad.
Hmm.
Some, not all.
Yeah.
This was their way of getting back to the Bulldogs. I'm going to
Hmm.
get back at you now.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to feed your dog something it shouldn't be eating.
Hmm.
And then it's going to throw up in your room. It's going to crap all over your room. Um, and that was their way of getting even with the Bulldogs.
Got it. Got it. Now,
Yeah.
do you think it was a prop? Was it a prop guided by Vince, or did Davey and Tom actually really care for the dog?
To this day, I didn't ask and I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know who thought of it.
Hmm.
It may very well have been Vince. It may have been someone else who said, hey, you should walk out there with a dog,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's going to get over. And obviously, people love dogs,
Yeah.
especially a little bulldog like that.
Yeah.
Once they added that bulldog to their repertoire, I mean, they were beyond popular.
Yeah. Yeah.
People couldn't get enough of them. You can see the difference,
Hmm.
when they went from without to with.
Hmm.
It was all about Matilda. I think at one point, they, and again, this is just my opinion, they may be getting a little bit jealous. The dog was taking away a lot of steam
Hmm.
from them,
Yeah. I,
but
I
at the same time, giving them so much steam.
Yeah, I remember they made an angle with it at WrestleMania 4 when they put Bobby Heenan in the weasel suit, and then
Yep.
Matilda went and attacked him. If you could look back now with everything you know, obviously with Paradise Alley Wrestling, for those who don't know, Paul helps train the superstars of tomorrow up in Connecticut. So if you were to look back now, would you say they were ahead of their time with what they were able to do in the ring, the Bulldogs?
Oh yeah. You know what I thought was really great about them when you look at today, the tag teams today, or even the singles today, because they wrestle singles too.
Yeah.
Um, they had a strong foundation,
Mhm.
as did the Islanders. You had Hakeem, um, as did a lot of other tag teams where they did. We all did. Um, it's going to sound so cheap, but basic moves,
Yeah.
right? We didn't do 720s off the top rope. We didn't have to dive through or over the top and hit guys on the floor. we didn't climb to the top rope, and do a one and a half twist with a half spin and
Yeah.
and land on. We didn't have to do all that.
No.
They're doing that today because they lack the ability to carry a psychological match into the ring,
Very
a,
true.
a, a match that makes sense, a
Hmm.
storyline in the match that people can get behind and follow.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
have to go over the top. That's why you have, the extreme where they use barbed wire and they use, light bulbs
Mhm.
and there's kids out on Facebook that are dropping elbows on cinder blocks and microwaves and doing backdrops on refrigerators.
Yeah.
Why?
It's not
I
wrestling.
mean, it's
Yeah.
not that's not wrestling at all. That's You're just an idiot
Hmm.
abusing your body until you get an injury that won't repair or you kill yourself,
Right.
which there's been quite a few wrestlers that have done this onto the concrete floor, have killed themselves
Yeah.
because the guy's not in position, he misses you, your head hits the concrete, you get paralyzed. Why?
Yeah.
Because you can say that you jumped on barbed wire and you scarred your body. Aren't
Yeah.
you thinking about tomorrow or a week from now, 5, 10 months from now, years from now? You have all these scars all over your body, or you've crippled yourself.
Hmm.
Why? To
Yeah.
entertain people for how much? 20, $30 a night, maybe $50. Even there's really no price
Hmm.
that you can put on it. Um, take Mankind,
Yeah.
nice guy, right? Nicest guy in the world, one of the
Mhm.
nicest guys. Crippled himself for what reason?
Yeah. He
He
almost
he
killed
walks like
himself,
he's
Paul.
yeah, he walks like he's 90 years old,
Hmm.
right? I mean, last time I saw him, anyway.
Yep.
Um, and he just thought it was cool to, you know, come off the top of a cage. I get it. The table down there is protected, for
Mm.
lack of a better word. But there are things that aren't, and the body has to give. Something has to give. I said this once before. The old saying is, if you jump off the Empire State Building, it's not the height that kills you. It's the sudden stop.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much
Okay.
the sudden impact. Yep. Yep.
Right. So when you jump off a top rope and you land in the ring, yes, there's give in that ring, but something has to give in the body. It can't keep going and taking that abuse. Well, just think about that when they're jumping off and going through tables. I don't care if there's airbags in the tables, and I'm talking about like the announcing tables at WWE
Hmm.
that they have set up.
Hmm.
You're still hitting some of that equipment, which hurts your
Yeah.
body. You don't always hit it right,
Right.
square. There's times you miss, or you're diving through, and some part of your body, even if it's your toes in a boot, are hitting the concrete floor. I mean, they
Yeah.
had padding around the ring at one time. I don't know if they still do, but again, it's, there's mistakes,
Hmm.
there's impact, and people don't understand that. And these young kids, which I never, ever let my students do, there's these young kids
Hmm.
that are doing it for next to no money.
All right.
And there's not enough money that you could be paid that will fix you,
No,
right?
no. And that
Uh,
and that's actually, let's do that. It's a public safety announcement right there. Anybody who is training to be a professional wrestler, pay attention to Paul. I've been around the independent circuit as well, and I see, again, there's no amount of money that's going to fix you. You have an injury, you break your neck, you're in your wheelchair. Nobody from that show or is going to give two hoots about what happens to you the rest of your life.
yeah,
There's wrestling was done, Paul, like you said, going back to the Bulldogs and the Young Stallions era. You guys were doing everything you could to not hurt the other person or yourselves. And
correct.
that's why it was psychology based. And guess
Yes,
what, everybody? It worked because it
it
became one of the
worked.
most popular exports in the world. So the
Yes.
wheel ain't broken, don't fix it. Right? So learn
Right.
psychology is, I guess, the takeaway from this, Paul.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, psychology is longevity. Abusing, scarring, permanently scarring your body is not. And you just said it. So you end up in a wheelchair or you end up disfigured. Okay. When somebody goes, "Hey, what happened to Amir?" Oh, he jumped off the top. The guy, he missed the guy. He broke his back on the rail. He's in a wheelchair. Wow, man, that's messed up. He's not wrestling anymore. No, dude, he broke his back. Oh, wow. Okay, now they move on.
Right, exactly.
Forgotten
Exactly.
about.
Exactly.
What did
Exactly.
you get paid? Or they sit there and say that and they go, "What an idiot."
Right. One or the other.
You think that you're performing for them. They just think you're an idiot for what
Yep.
you're doing. And technically, and for you are.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
absolutely are.
Yeah, and going back a little bit, sorry fans to detract from the British Bulldog in the UK, but you mentioned there Mick Foley. One of the things I often thought is that see, to me, when I see somebody, and I don't know about you, Paul, but when I see somebody abusing themselves purposefully, I think there's a mental issue going on. Not that they're like nuts, but what I mean is there's a self-abuse trigger in their brain because they're punishing themselves for something that happened to them down the line or something they did. It's a form of self abuse, is what it is. It's actually a mental health condition, I would think. What do you think?
And I think to add to that is, I think a lot of it has to also, and I agree with you. I
Mhm.
think a lot of it has to do with they think it's making them tough,
Okay.
right? I'm going to show everybody I'm tough.
Hmm.
When Mick Foley lost part of his ear,
Yeah.
we were in Europe, and I was in the locker room,
Oh, you were there,
and
Paul? Oh, wow.
I
I
was
didn't know.
there.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So somebody said, "Hey, Mick Foley lost his ear." Now they had told him prior to, "Do not tie yourself up in the ropes. They are just too tight. The ropes are too tight." Well, he didn't listen. Right? He's going to do his own thing. So he tied himself up in the ropes. And when the referee went to loosen the rope, get his arms out, they were struggling. I mean, it was a real struggle.
Hmm.
The rope shot up to where it's supposed to be,
Hmm.
and it clipped the bottom part of his ear off.
Mm.
And
Mm.
then the referee picked it up on the ground as Mick went back to the locker room, and here's your ear. What are you going to do with it? But here's your ear. So, you're always asking, "Hey, is that match over? Is that match over? Is that match over?" Because you want to see, where you are, how much time you have before you got to go out there. And
Yeah.
somebody goes, "Yeah, Mick lost his ear," and I went, "What?" They said his ear got cut off. I'm
Mm.
like, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "Well, he tied himself up in the ropes," and I was like, "They told him not to."
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he didn't listen, and his ear came off so that's how they explained it. I thought it was the entire ear. So
Yeah.
I go over to the locker room, like, "Well, where is he?" So I open up the locker room door, and he's sitting sideways from the way I'm facing him. And I go, "Mick, are you okay?"
Hmm.
like that. Because now I was concerned about the guy,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
like him or not like him, I didn't want to see anybody get hurt. And he turns to me and he goes, I lost my ear. Ah, and he starts laughing. And I went, okay. I closed the door. I go, you're an idiot. I mean, that was my response. There
Yeah.
wasn't anybody
Yeah.
around me,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I just said, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're laughing about defaming here. You're like just your body. You just
Yeah.
lost part of your ear. There's nothing funny about that.
No.
It
No.
doesn't make you tough.
No.
You know what I mean? I've had injuries, and I didn't cry. You
Hmm.
know, I've gone to hospitals and they're like, well, we got to give it. No, just sew it up. Hell, I sewed my own hand up.
Gosh, Paul. Is
I
that
stitched
from
my the.
wrestling?
No, I was with a bunch of friends and this kid. I was on a rock and he kind of like you push somebody and it wasn't a long drop. So I lost my balance and down I went. And when I went down, when I hit the grass below, it was on an angle. So my
Hmm.
feet slipped. And you put your hands down
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
break your fall. Well,
Yeah.
I hit a piece of metal and
Yeah.
it went into my hand. So I pulled it out. And obviously, when you cut your hand, you have to get stitches because it's never going to heal.
Right.
So, and it was pretty deep. So I was like, man, I can't go to the hospital. What am I going to tell my father? I mean,
Hmm.
that was my big concern. What am I going to tell my father? So I took a needle and I bent it and I burned it,
Hmm.
the end,
Yeah.
and I just took thread
That's it. And just,
and I stuck it through my hand
jeez.
and I knotted the other end and I pulled it through.
Yeah.
So um, it was looking okay, but it really wasn't healing the way, and I had gotten hit in the hand again and
Hmm.
it kind of opened up, right?
Yeah.
So I went to the doctor and he goes, who stitched your hand? And I said, well, I did. And he goes, you're kidding. And I'm like, no. He goes, well, not a bad job, but we got to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they restitched my hand. Um, but again, it's like you, it doesn't make me tough,
Hmm.
right? These guys that you're traveling with have broken legs. They've broken their legs. They've broken their arms. They've had probably, these, the big fists on their elbows and you go up to one guy, you're like, oh, look, and he's got all this fluid. And I'm like, damn, dude. And, then they whack it against concrete and it explodes, which they shouldn't, get rid of the fluid that way, but that's what they do. Rene Goulet cut his elbow open to
Hmm.
drain it, and like it was like a tendon came out. You know what I
Oh
mean?
gosh. Yeah.
Um, these guys were, tough and nuts.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I, it was like there was a fine line between how do you differentiate who's nuts and who's tough,
Yeah. That is, yeah, because there's a fine line there when it becomes like almost sadistic. Like it's a
right?
nut. Yeah. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So these young kids don't get it, man.
Mhm.
I highly, encourage them not to
Yeah.
to do these things because the fans are going to love it for the moment,
Hmm.
but then it's all forgotten, and you're left holding the battle wounds.
Yeah.
It's easy for us to sit back when there's a war going on, and you really can't get through your head that people are dying to protect our country, and they bring them back in caskets, and they drape the American flag on them,
Mhm.
and you kind of feel bad, right? And I'm
Mhm.
talking for other people, you kind of feel bad. I
Yeah.
feel horrible.
Yeah.
Um, but then you forget about it because it didn't affect you. It's not you,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I always tell people that, you know what? Okay, so an illegal alien murdered that woman's daughter, that man or woman's daughter,
Hmm.
and you feel bad and for them and oh, that's so awful. And you get these senators, these congressmen, and okay, like nothing's being done. You know why? Because it didn't hit home. It
Yeah.
didn't happen to them.
Yeah.
And these people that watch you come off ladders and go through ladders and glass and light bulbs and not worry about infection and getting cut, and scarred.
You know
Doesn't
what?
affect them. They
You
pay
know,
their $10 to see you, their $20 to see you, right?
yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't affect them. And until it affects them, then they'd be like, oh, you shouldn't do that. One thing, I'm rambling.
That's right.
I had an English teacher,
Hmm.
wish I could remember her name. And she got in a car accident. I didn't know this at the time. And I was 16. And now it's time for driver's ed. And she said, you know what they should do? She goes, they should put everybody that's going to learn to drive in the car and they should run them into a wall
Mm.
and show them what it's like to go through a windshield. And I was like, wow, this teacher's nuts,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you can't say that now. You
No,
could say that then, and you get it, right?
yeah,
And I'm sitting there going, I turned to one of my buddies. I'm like, dude, is she nuts or what? And he
yeah.
goes, you know why she said that? And I said, no. I mean, I understand she wants everybody to drive safe. He goes, she was in a car accident, and that's what happened to her.
Got it.
She wants you all to understand the
Yes.
severity of it and how serious you should take driving,
Yeah.
not be a bunch of lunatics on the road and hurt somebody or yourself.
There's cautionary tales. They're there for a reason, Paul. So many guys, like you're saying, thinking about Mick Foley, thinking about the way guys are, like even Shawn Michaels. I don't know if you've seen Shawn walk lately, but Shawn's body is not, I mean, his legs are bowed, his back is
Yep.
bent, and even him. Now, he did take some risks. I know that,
Yes.
but not nearly what you're talking about, like some of these other guys. But I wanted to touch on Europe now because you mentioned you were there when Mick
Yes.
Foley was there, and of course we're talking about the UK and overseas travel. So one of the things that fans I don't think quite understand is how you guys figure out how to travel because most if people have gone overseas to Europe, there's a huge jet lag. There's other factors that come into play like when you travel you get water retention. You're tired. Are you going to go to the gym? Can you perform as well? Can you eat as well on the plane? So how do you adjust to that? Were there any tricks that you found to being able to still show up in good shape?
Yeah. So what I did was um, I had to take in a lot of fluid. I took all of my amino acids, all my vitamins. I carried a little. Well, I shouldn't say a little bag. It was like a camera case,
Yeah.
just loaded with all my not my protein. I mean, I had that too, but these are just sublingual
Okay.
for kidneys and heart and brain and you just name it. I had them all.
Okay.
And amino acids. When I got hungry, I I eat the amino acids.
Okay.
If there was nothing available anymore, because it's tough. You get on a flight, they serve you the airplane food. I had protein bars, protein shakes. I had for back then, long as you got rid of it, because you weren't bringing food
Hmm.
over. Once you got off the plane, you better not have fruits and
Yeah.
vegetables, right?
Yeah.
So, I'd bring whatever I could get away with on that plane.
Hmm.
And it didn't last long, believe me. I mean, I was eating like a horse back then. But one thing, the water kept you up to speed. Um, Normal travel. This was not normal travel. Let me emphasize that to everybody, all our subscribers out there. This was not normal travel.
All right.
You were unable to sleep on a flight. Let's say you're on a 12-hour flight and you say, okay, that's cool. I'm going to go to sleep. Sure. On a normal flight, you can go to sleep. And we're on these big Boeing 747s, right? All
Hmm.
the room in the world. Oh, this is great. If you went to sleep and you had somebody on that flight, which normally you did, another wrestler, like the Bulldogs, okay, the British Bulldogs, Mr. Fuji. I don't know. You had to sleep with one eye open. So there was no sleeping on the plane because you could wake up with your head shaved
Yeah.
partially.
Yeah.
You could wake up with, let's just say, nail polish all over your fingernails. Um, and that's just to name like minute things. I can't even say some of the bad things,
Yeah.
but that is, they would give you illegal substance that would, make you do things that you're unaware that you're doing,
Yeah.
which I've witnessed.
Okay.
So, Fuji told me in the beginning, don't go to sleep on the plane. So no matter how tired you got, if you did go to sleep, make sure that you are covered from head to toe
Hmm.
with blanket over you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if they move the blanket, then you could pop up
Yeah.
and then you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Or sit in a window seat so that, and somebody next to you that you don't know, that's a passenger, and say, hey, listen, I'm going to close my eyes. Like, are
Hmm.
you going to sleep? No, good. I'm going to close my eyes. And if anybody comes around, nudge me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'd get people that would nudge you
Okay.
because what they would do was, and I've seen this, they would tell the people in front of you, can you please move? And the passengers would get out of their way.
Oh yeah, I'm sure
And
they
they would
would. Yeah.
come over the seat,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
get behind you, and then yeah, you're in a world of trouble.
So the Bulldogs
So,
would have done that.
oh yeah, yeah. So what I did was this. So you get on your flight, drink plenty of water, stay hydrated, try to eat,
Hmm.
best you can, as
Hmm.
much as you can. And one of the key things I did was I stayed on US time
Okay.
up until a certain point. So when you land in Japan, right? Um, or you land in England, you're X amount of hours, was it ahead?
Ahead, yeah.
Behind?
Yeah,
Ahead.
ahead.
Okay. So you're X amount of hours ahead. So let's just say, and I'm going to use, and don't hold me to this, but I'm just going to use simple math. So it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the United States.
Hmm.
Okay. It's 9 o'clock at night in Britain.
Hmm.
Well, it's only 3 o'clock, but everybody's going to sleep because it's 9 p.m.
Right.
So what do? Do you go to sleep? Right? Because only 3 o'clock here. Well, what I did was I tried to stay on US time for the most part if we went the opposite way.
Okay. Okay. I see what you're doing.
So, right. And that's what I did. And then I slowly blended it in, depending upon how long I was there.
Hmm. Hmm.
If I'm there for a week, then I blend it.
Hmm.
Like when we went to Australia, woo, you are all messed up.
Oh, that's 24 hours, right? It's a whole day.
So you're like, oh man, but let's see, it's time to go to sleep. And I should be going to sleep, but it's 8 o'clock in the morning and everybody's getting up. So
Mm.
what you try to do is blend the day and and stay on US time. So you
Hmm.
get that little bit of sleep. It may not be 8 hours, but you're going to get a few hours sleep, and then you're going to slowly transition into the Australian time, and it worked
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'd be bobbing around, and guys are like, "Dude, aren't you drained?" And I'm like, "No, you're not wrecked," and I'm like, "No, I'm good."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't get it, and I said,
Yeah.
"Well, because I stayed on U.S. time,
Yeah.
and then I just blended it in, so it didn't affect my workouts."
Got it. Got it. That's a good way to do it. Um, so going back to the UK, Paul, were you in the what was it? There was a tour UK Rampage 1991. Did you go out there in 91, 92?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So what were you was that the first time you've been to England or you've been there before?
I may have been there once. Maybe it was the first time. Maybe it's first time. Yeah,
Okay.
it may have been the first time. And we went to, and it escapes me now. The place we went to was absolutely breathtaking.
Hmm. Mm.
Um, it was a theater.
Okay.
If you
Oh,
said the name, I'd know.
the Royal Albert Hall.
Yes,
That was it. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. That was
It
one.
was absolutely breathtaking. And
Yeah.
they stuck a ring down in the middle of it.
Yep. I do remember that. Yeah, yeah, that's true. It looked so weird. They had the guy playing the organs when the Undertaker came out. I remember that. Yeah, it was so yeah, Battle Royal at the Royal Albert Hall. What were your impressions of the British fans?
Mm.
Different to the US fans?
More accepting of everything that you do.
Hmm.
Every country, state, well, let's put it back. Every country we went into was very accepting, overly accepting of us. Um, it was like none of us are going to remember this far back, but it was take your favorite thing to eat, food to eat, as a little kid, if you can
Mhm.
remember, even if it's candy,
Okay.
you know, and that's what it was like when you looked out at the crowd. They were kids in a candy store. They
Mhm.
were singing this live for the first time. Their biggest stars came to life,
Yeah.
you know, so accepting of us.
Yeah. It
And,
was
and when you spoke to them later on, like when I go to Germany now and England now, and I'm walking to the store and I run into people, fans, they're they're so cordial,
yeah. Yeah.
you know. And back then, only here in the United States, if you gave them an inch, they took a foot. Gave them a foot, they took a mile. So when somebody came up to me and asked me a question, like they say, "Hey, can I get an autograph?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I'd sign it for them. "Hey, can I ask you a question?" "Yeah, sure. Go on." Well, when I first started saying yes to those things, um, I got cold cocked. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? I
Hmm.
got hit with the left and the right
Yeah.
because I was being that nice guy, and I quickly and soon realized that now I started picking up what direction they were going in. When
Hmm.
they ask you one question, then they thought it was okay to ask you anything and everything and keep asking you questions.
Hmm.
Now the sky's the limit. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Hey,
Speak,
Paul,
Paul.
do you do drugs? Yeah,
Can I jump in there quickly? Because before I
yeah,
forget, so I
yeah.
just want to remind the audience there that our super chats, our live show, will be coming up in the month of March. And during the super chats, the live shows, Paul, we will be accepting questions from our audience. You're going to have to use the super sticker. You can donate to the show. You hit your super sticker, and then your question will be answered live on air. Similarly,
Beautiful.
I also want to let everybody know, Paul, that when this show is running live, as you're watching it now, it will say live. There will be the chats available beneath this video, only during its premiere. If you want a question asked, use a super sticker for your super sticker donation, and we will see it and I will mark it and we will make sure that that specific question and your name will be mentioned and answered on the next show. That's all I wanted to say, Paul. All right, going back.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. So it came. They thought it gave them carte blanche to ask anything that they wanted to ask, and then it escalated
Mm.
from that point.
Yeah.
Now they started to um, debate with
Yeah.
you. Well, you asked me a question, I gave you an answer. Now you're telling me that that answer may not be true, or you have a problem with that answer. So I had to start nipping that in the butt. You
Mhm.
don't get that overseas. At least I didn't get
Mhm.
it overseas.
Yeah. I know you
It
guys
didn't happen.
You guys were so well received. I do remember now vividly the Battle Royal at the Royal Albert Hall. That was coincidentally the one that British Bulldog won. He won the Samaphar Trophy at the end of that Battle Royal. So, yeah, that was one of the first shows that they brought out. I think one of the first UK, they did the UK Rampage earlier that year, and then that was the second show that year. So, yeah, wrestling was huge. Just a quick diversion here. Obviously, I grew up in the UK. So that was a big deal to see you guys out there. And like you said, Paul, to us, it was like something extra special because you guys were from the US. We couldn't see you every week. It was a rare occasion, and when you did come out, you put on a great show. Obviously, the next year, SummerSlam '92. I think at that time though, you left WWE, you were on your way to WCW by the time SummerSlam '92 had rolled around. But going back to Davey Boy then a little bit. So this, yeah, he won the Samovar Trophy. Everything seemed to be going up for him. He was doing great at that time. He went into the singles run. You were still there. It was Power and Glory. In fact, you guys got to work with him quite a bit when you guys were tagged with the Warlord. It seemed like I think it was SummerSlam '91. You guys opened SummerSlam at Madison Square Garden. It was you, Hercules, and Warlord against the Tornado, Ricky Steamboat, and the Bulldog. You opened it that show. You remember?
Wow. I vaguely, vaguely remember that. I remember the Hartford Civic Center.
That was the Survivor Series.
That was Survivor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that one at the Garden. Wow.
It
I have to
was
go
the
back and watch it. Then it comes to me.
Yeah, yeah. It was the one where it was the night when the Warrior held up Vince McMahon for money at the end of the night when Sid Justice debuted, Sid Vicious. He was there in the main event. You don't remember it at all, Paul? Yeah, it was like it was a big
No,
event. It was Mr. Perfect's last match against Bret Hart for the Intercontinental title that night. It was a big
no.
one. Wow, you're gonna have to watch it, Paul.
Uh, yeah. And again, to the fans out there, because there were so many, I cannot tell you with certainty
Mhm,
if somebody walked up to me and said, I'm going to give you $10 million right now, name the manias you were in,
mhm.
name the survivors you were in, name the SummerSlams you were in. I couldn't.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, people don't realize, Paul, the magnitude of the travel schedule that you were involved with back then. Not to mention, obviously, traveling with pain as well. That can also obscure your memories and thoughts. But like you said, sometimes you were wrestling twice in a day, right? 7 days a
Yeah.
week. So it can
Yeah.
be extremely difficult to
Yeah.
remember.
I got in and I got out.
Yeah.
I wasn't keeping score. And
Yeah.
there's people that do,
Yeah.
right? They jotted down. I don't know. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
When someone says, "Hey, have you traveled all over the world?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I'll start naming places. They're like, "Oh, I forgot I was in Belgium. Oh, hey, by the way, I was here.
Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot this place."
Yeah.
It's just how it is
Yeah.
because you've been to so many places.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't want to say they blend. Your life blends.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Someone says, "Oh, how many times have you been to Y?" I'm like, "Oh God, I've been there like a dozen times." They're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even if it was a layover.
Hmm. Yeah. Well,
Um,
it's a bunch of places condensed into one period of time. So I mean, a short period of time. As
Short
most
period of time.
most people, if they travel, they may be lucky if they go one place a year or two
Right.
places a year, and so it's more of a memory they can hold on to. But speaking of travel and moving around, let's talk about WCW. So now you're in WCW, the Bulldog comes over. This is a shock. I mean, the backstory to it was Vince McMahon was getting in big time trouble for steroids. And so we were told um, Davey and the Warrior started doing growth hormone to get around the fact that they couldn't do steroids. The office got a hold of that. They got pissed off and they got fired. Now, Davey Boy shows up in WCW, jacked to the bigger than ever, because obviously he can do what he wants there, apparently. When he got to WCW, were you guys in good there? Were you happy to see him? Were you guys talking more than the early days?
Honestly, I think I was gone
No, you were still there,
when he
Paul. It was
really.
90. Yeah, you was.
I don't remember Davy Boy even coming in.
Wow. Darn, Paul. You got to go back and watch all these tapes, man, because I can show you events where you're on the same card, Paul.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. What it comes down to is this.
Yeah.
All joking aside, and this is for the fans, and try and make them understand. Pain, yeah, a lot of pain I was in the match, after the match, before the match, and there's things that you just don't care to remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
People say, oh, you don't remember this person's name. Well, let's see. I've met, I don't know, over 1 million people,
Yeah.
and they've told me their names. Hi, I'm John, I'm Joe, I'm Jill, I'm Bob, I'm Dick, and Harry. Okay.
Mhm.
And then you go back a month or two later and you run into them again because you're staying at the same hotel in Chicago
Right.
and they know you're staying at the hotel and they run into you and they're like, hey, Paul, how you doing? You're like, hey, how you doing? Remember me? Yeah, no.
Right. Right.
Well, I just met you a month ago. Well, you know how many people I see in a month's time
Yeah. Yeah.
and how many names get thrown at me?
Yeah.
Do I forget your face? No. I'd see the same kid, front row, Madison Square Garden, told me his name. He's got come on to ask questions in my podcast,
Mhm.
but I can't tell you what his name is right now. Do I
Mhm.
remember his face? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'd
Yeah.
carry on a conversation with him from the ring before the bell rang.
Okay.
But when it comes down to it, I just got in, got out, let's move on. Got
Hmm.
in, got out, let's move on.
Hmm.
What's my schedule look like? Where am I tomorrow? Where am I staying tonight? Oh,
Yeah.
that hotel sold out. Great. Now where do I go? You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
A lot to
It was
remember.
a lot to remember. And again, if you could show me the very beginning of a match and I could call every spot that I did
Hmm.
and that we went through.
Hmm.
Because now it's like total recall.
Yeah. 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 Now you
My
remember it.
daughter has shown me something. Hey, Dad, you remember this? And I'm like, no, let me see. And then as soon as we start, I'm like, oh yeah, and now this, and now that, and now this.
Yeah.
So that I get, but I don't know. I always found trying to categorize people, their names, uh, where I've been, what matches I've had, with who. Um, it was filling up a lot of space.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm saying to myself, and I say it to people, somebody would tell me something and I'll say, okay, so what am I going to do with all that useless information?
Yeah. Very true. I think the
I'm going
same.
to store it, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think that way, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah,
honestly, yeah, it's like, sometimes like now people are wising up to children and people in high school. So many classes where you could have just sat there and just daydreamed because it's not resonating to you. That class, again, if somebody's already made up their mind, they're going to be an athlete, nothing you can say in a chemistry or a biology cast is gonna resonate with that kid because he's already made up his mind. He's not designed like that. And it goes back to our faith, Paul. God designs people with different talents for different jobs. Not everybody's going to be the same. All right. So,
right.
um,
And let's take our co-host Mancini,
yep.
a perfect example.
Mhm.
Mancini can, and you know, I'm 65, right? I
Mhm.
wrestled when I was 22.
Yeah.
Mancini can tell you every word I said
Yeah.
that long ago. When
Yeah.
we're in the car, I remember when I told you this and you said this back to me, and I look at him like, are you for real? And then I'll recall the conversation and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Like, how do you remember this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
driving in a car, say going to the airport or getting to the town,
Yeah.
and we had this conversation, and you're recalling it
Yeah. It's
from like
crazy.
40 years ago. I mean, seriously?
Yeah, I tell you, well, actually, Paul, actually, interesting little side note. So last weekend, just passing some time with my wife, we're watching a bit of the YouTube. There's actually something called HSAMs. It's a condition where their brains are hyperly sensitive to recording and registering and filing off memories like you would not believe, Paul. They can remember, like I remember there's an actress, I forget her name, but if they give her a date, like, oh, what was October 27th in 1988? She'll remember what day it was. She'll remember if she went to have a meal with a friend and what was discussed, what she was wearing. It's incredible, Paul. It's like an
Wow.
incredible, it's like all these things they're discovering it with science and technology now, whereas these people really have a super brain. They can remember like, you know, And Mario does have a super brain. I can tell you that. I mean, anybody who can go to law school and pass and do what he's done following wrestling. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, if you are new to the show and you haven't seen our other co-star Mario Mancini, make sure you check back in with us, or also go back and check out previous episodes. He's a stand-up guy, great
Oh, it's
great
amazing.
natural entertainer. He
Oh
knows how.
yeah,
Yeah, he's a funny guy. We're very blessed to have him here. Um, so we'll move a little bit on. So we'll bring it towards the close,
sure.
Paul. So you hear about the news that Davey died. I think he was only 39 when he
Yeah.
died. 2003. Very sad. What kind of emotions did that evoke in you?
Um, well, let me give our fans something about me that a lot of and I never looked at it as a bad thing. I thought it ended up being a good thing actually.
Mhm.
Um, there's things that I don't do. I avoid funerals, and the reason I avoid funerals, and it doesn't matter who it is. Um, if they're cremated, different story.
Mhm.
I want to remember a person as they were.
Yep.
I want to remember you as you are right now.
Mhm.
I don't want to see you laying in a casket lifeless.
Mhm.
Okay. So I avoid those. If I have to go, I stay back away from it. I'll pay my respects to the family, but I don't want to see that person.
Mhm.
Um, and are there exceptions? Yes, there are exceptions
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
are just unavoidable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, you could start a family war, for lack of a better word. And
Mhm.
we want to always avoid a family war.
Yeah.
Um, I was brought up very stern. Um, and I was brought up not, how can I say this? Not to show emotion, for
Mhm.
lack of a better word.
Okay.
Crying in front of somebody, and it all depends on what, but
Mhm.
for the most part, is a weakness.
Mhm.
How many people, and I want everybody that's listening right now to think about this. If you were to cry in front of a group of people, how many people, now I know some people would come over and go, oh, honey, or, oh, so, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Right? But do they really care? Or do they just want to find out why you're crying because they're nosy?
Mhm.
They feel better about themselves. When my daughter is in practice, when my daughter competes, as she was coming up, and she was 6, 7 years old, 8 years old, and she's 18 now, well, 17 now. Um, I said to her, if you split the beam, if you fall, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
Do not cry in front of the other girls. And she said, why? I said, because they're going to take that as a weakness. Not all of them care that you split the beam and hurt your leg or your ass or whatever the case may be. Okay. So do not cry in front of them. You fight it off.
Mhm.
When you get away from them, go in the bathroom and cry. Don't cry in front of them
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, not everybody cares.
Mhm.
They may play that they do. Oh, are you okay? Do they really care?
Mhm.
Right? When someone says, "Hey, I'm going to pray for you," did they really? Did they really
Yeah.
pray for you,
Very
or did
true.
they just say it? Right?
Very true.
So that's where I am in life.
Mhm.
I don't cry for everything that happens.
Mhm.
Okay. When my dog died and I cried as a kid, my father said to me, "Why are you crying?"
Mhm.
Well, my dog died, Dad. My dog died. Stop crying. It's a
Mhm.
dog.
Mhm.
Wow. Wow. Well, I
Mhm.
couldn't wrap my brain around that as a little kid, but I
Right.
did right quick.
Mhm.
I did. Now I couldn't understand why people are crying when their dog dies,
Mhm.
right? Do I feel for them? Yes, I do.
Mhm.
Am I going to cry for them? No, I'm not.
Right.
I
Yeah.
feel bad for them.
Yeah.
I do. I
Yeah.
feel bad for them because I understand. I've had dogs
Yeah.
and they've died.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
front of my dad, you weren't crying.
Right. Right.
You know, and it's just how it is. When Davy Boy, going back to your question, when Davy Boy passed away, you know, I felt bad for him. I felt bad for his family. I
Mhm.
felt bad for his kids. Um, yeah, it's sad that
Yeah.
he died at such a young age.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm not that sympathetic person
Hmm.
that's going to throw that show, put on that show. Oh,
Yeah.
oh my God. Oh, I
Yeah.
really loved him. I really loved him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
You
a
know,
sad.
I got along with the guy. It's sad. I feel very bad for his family. That's from the heart.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I don't want anybody to lose their father,
Hmm.
good, bad, or indifferent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's on them,
Yeah.
whether they want to shed a tear,
Yeah.
you know, and carry that. But
He's he was like you said, Paul. I understand that, and I think many of our viewers do. I think it was a shock. Like for me, I met Davey one time in the UK. He was doing a tour, and I never forget. We took a picture of him. It was 5 pounds, which would have been the equivalent of $10 back then. And my sister and I were there, and I remember he put his arm over my shoulder, and I was a little kid. I remember saying to my dad, his arm feels like a rock because he was so huge at the time. This was like when he was at his biggest, and and he was a great guy. And then another quick story. So there was an event called One Night Only in 1997, and it was pay-per-view. It was Shawn Michaels against Davey Boy in the main event. And surprisingly, Sean won that night, which I thought was odd considering Davey, they were in England. But at school at the time, we were trying to get into wrestling, my friend and I, but we didn't know how. There's no freaking wrestling school on every corner or anything like this. So we'd written a letter. When I look back, it was kind of ingenious, even though it didn't work. We'd written letters at school and we'd used the school ink and paper to print that letter like 30 or 40 times. And we used the envelopes, we sealed it up, same letter, just pretty much asking Davy Boy, we want to get into the wrestling business. How do we do it? So we're at the show. We run down to ringside. And in fact, if anybody out there has got access to One Night Only, you can actually see me and my friend on there because they actually interviewed us and asked us,
really,
yeah, they asked us, who do you think's going to win in the main event? And I think I told my friend at the time, he says, oh, the British Bulldog's going to win. And I told him all the way, I said, no, Shawn Michaels is going to win, right? I just knew it.
really,
And I remember after they got off camera, I said, why the heck did you say the Bulldog was going to win? I told you, and we got into it anyway. But we ran down there. We were right near the aisle. Every time someone would go to the back, we'd hand them a letter. Please. And then we addressed it to British Bulldog, a couple of little kids. And we waited at the end of the night. And I remember there, and my friend's name is Richard. His dad was there, and he's like, come on, guys, we got to go. We're like, no, 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 we're going to wait. He's going to come back through the curtain. He's going to help us become wrestlers. He never did, right? But at the end of the day, just a
I
tidbit.
think your letters were left in the locker room.
Yeah, pretty sure. If someone has access to that, please send it. I'd like to see what we wrote back then. But nonetheless, hey man, he meant something to the UK fans. Arguably, I think British Bulldog is the greatest professional wrestler to ever come out of the United Kingdom. I know we've got some good ones now. Well, Drew McIntyre's from Scotland, so that doesn't count. But we've got
Right.
some. He meant a lot to that generation of fans. In England, he was equally as big as Hulk Hogan in The Ultimate Warrior at the
Oh, huge,
yeah,
huge.
yeah,
Look, he was over
yeah,
in
yeah,
his own country. Forget it.
yeah.
Hogan couldn't hold a candle to him.
No, he was
The Bulldogs, they were over. And what are
yeah,
you going to say? Well, there were two of them and one of Hogan. No, either
no,
one of them walked out. That place was deafening
yeah. He was
for
definitely
those guys.
and we got to experience that. I was there at SummerSlam '92 when he beat Brett for the Intercontinental title. 80,000 people, Wembley Stadium. It was phenomenal. When he
Yeah.
won, the whole stadium just exploded. But nonetheless, we're going to reminisce some more about this, Paul, because I'm going to make an announcement right now. So, when we knew we were going to do this show, I reached out to Harry Smith. That's the British Bulldog's son. And he will be appearing with us on a special in the coming next month, in the month of March. So make sure that you powerplex that subscribe button, hit the notifications bell, hit the likes, and share this because it's going to be a big one when we have Harry Smith
Yep.
on. And you've met him as well. You met him when he was younger, Paul.
Yes, and I actually watched him wrestle
Yeah. Great,
for
talented guy.
MLW. Yeah, looks just like his father.
Just like his father. Yep, exactly. It's going to be a good one. Paul,
Yeah,
any closing remarks for this episode?
I just want to reiterate what you said. Listen, it's going to be a great show. Make sure you subscribe. You don't want to miss it. Travel on over with us, and we're going to talk to his son. I mean, the British Bulldog's son.
Yep.
How much better than that can you get? And Mr. Mancini will be back.
Yes, he will be back with us on that time. And of course, as Paul said, Mario has a mind and a half on him. So he'll be quizzing even Harry on some of the things that maybe he doesn't know about his dad
Yeah.
and whatnot. So it's going to be very interesting. But from all of us here at the Masters of Wrestling, from the Power and Glory, the episodic podcast, we want to thank you for joining us. Paul, it's been a pleasure as always, sir.
Yes, sir. Always with you. Appreciate you.
Yep. Appreciate you too, brother. All right. God bless you, Paul. God bless everyone out there. We'll see you
Yes.
next week on Power and Glory.
I'm Joe Rogan status, baby. Woo!